If you're over 50 and you avoid wearing crochet because it's too bulky, you can always see those chunks around the ends, like the cornrow edges, or you feel like the texture never looks right. Welcome. You have come to the right place. Welcome to another day of our Protective Style Challenge. My name is Francine Tuku. I have been a natural hairstylist, extension specialist, and wig maker for over 3 decades. I was about to say 3 decades, but it's been over 3 decades. And I wanted to share a few tips that may make crochet more palatable for you. I know that I've seen crochet that it just looks like a big bulky mess. Granted, there are some great crochet hair, I will call them artists these days, who do amazing jobs. Yet there are other crochet styles running around here that kind of get under my skin. So I can totally understand why, if you're a woman in your 50s, you want to wear something that's going to be complimentary. So here are a few tips if you're going to do a crochet install. So I've been wearing crochet since I was a little girl, literally. I will try to insert a couple pictures showing you some of my earlier crochet work. When I was a very little girl, I literally prayed for hair one night and I thought that God didn't hear me. I thought that he didn't answer me. But years later, he showed me that he heard my prayer and he answered it, and he continued to answer it. He continues to answer it. And over the years, he's given me so much, I would just say gifts. He's given me so many gifts related to hair and, just for my personal use, but I've chosen to share them and use them as, part of my career. Like I said, I've been doing hair for over 3 decades now, and it literally began with using some hair from my baby Chrissy and using a latch hook from a rug making set that my mom gave me as a kid. And the journey has just been going on and on. I have, I will share other, I guess a lengthier version of my testimony. But for today, I just want to share some tips that you might find helpful. I've always been really meticulous about trying to do things with my hair that make it look real. Now, I'm not going to pretend that it's real. If you ask me, I'll tell you. If, I feel like it's going to be helpful, I'll just come out and tell you. But I don't like hair that just looks fake. That's just me. Braids are one thing. I'm not a big fan of like the crochet braids where you see these like big bulky pieces where you loop it over. I'm not a fan of that either. So I always just like things that look natural. And when I do crochet, I like it to be like a natural looking density. So I've worked on ways of achieving like a more natural looking density. And I've kind of narrowed it down to 1 or 2 things that I find really helpful to create a natural looking density. So with most crochet installs, I see people starting in the back and using a pretty cookie cutter technique, like of just installing, to cover up the tracks that you lay. But my suggestion, and what I find that helps me to get a more natural density, I start around the part and around the perimeter, around the hairline. And the reason why I do this is because it helps me to immediately like establish a sort of coverage, like a coverage of the rest of the hair, so that I'm not winding up with a bunch of hair by the time I get to the top. And then I still have to add more and more to try to create coverage, or to just create like coverage for those areas that, have cornrows. Now I was about to say unit because I make units, but this crochet install has 0 leave out. So I have, cornrows going back, a little. I like to put them a little bit on the diagonal because I think that helps to get rid of like sometimes you see the cornrows going straight back and you can see the space between the cornrows. When you lay them on a little bit of an angle, it helps to eliminate that and makes the hair able to fall forward when you install it. But I digress. Let me get back to what I was trying to say. I like to install the hair around the part around the edges and around the hairline first, because that then lets you see what else you need to put in the back. Because already when you install these parts, you're already going to get a good bit of coverage. So you don't need to install as much all around when you can already see how much coverage you're getting up here. And once you get the coverage up here, I like to then go in and fill in the back in areas where it's most needed. Particularly down at the bottom, I'm not putting a whole lot, but like around in this horseshoe area, I'll put a bit more, but not as much as I would put if I, just went and started installing it in sort of a, just a diagram or like I said, a cookie cutter way. I suggest taking a more custom approach to your install so that you don't wind up with too much hair. I always like to wear hair that looks natural, and part of it looking natural is it having like the right textural combination. I'm a stickler for that as well. So when I'm installing crochet, the second thing that I pay attention to is the texture of the hair that I'm installing. I never like to just use a cookie cutter bundle of synthetic hair. I will use like a bundle that has been customized, that has a combination of textures, because, working with women and men over my 30 plus year career, I have noticed that people's hair, the texture is never 100% the same throughout. You get different pockets of texture. Primarily like in your roots, you might have something going on around your hairline, around the nape of your neck, and in the full body, going around your hair. It tends to have like a little bit of difference. Yes, on one head of hair, there are little nuances of difference. So in order to have a look that looks more natural to me, I prefer like a blended sort of more nuanced bundle of hair. And I do use synthetic hair. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why I prefer synthetic hair. There are many. The first is, like I said, the first hair that I ever had access to was my baby Chrissy doll. And that hair lasted and lasted and lasted, because back then, you couldn't just run up in the beauty supply store and, buy bundles of hair. Hair was a lot less easy to access back then. So I learned I cut my teeth, I'll say, on synthetic hair. Another thing that makes me like synthetic hair more is that, I've been to the hair factories in Asia, and I have seen, how the human hair is processed. I have seen, some of the sources of the human hair, and it's not something that I am crazy about, I'll just say. And to each his own. I'm just not crazy about it. And I don't like the way, personally, that even the best quality of human hair behaves. It is so finicky and so subject to environmental and climate and changes, and it's so subject to moisture. Like, you could get the best human hair on the market, and you go outside in the humidity and that hair is going to react. Man-made fibers and synthetic hair don't do that. Another reason why I am such a stickler and a lover of synthetic hair is how it behaves in heat. My husband is from West Africa, so, over the years we've traveled there a lot, and the heat will do numbers on your hair. I've seen women with these beautiful bundles of expensive hair, and once that heat hits it, it's going to react, because it is from a living, breathing organism. You take some wool, say for instance, if you were using like real wool from like a sheep's wool, that has a reaction when it goes in heat. If you put wool in a dryer, it shrinks up. if you use like acrylic yarn, it behaves a little bit differently. The fibers of synthetic and man-made hair are made from very similar, if not identical fibers of like acrylic yarn and like acrylic clothing, like polyester, things that don't react so much to the environment. I love that I can go to the beach, I can go to the village, I can go, you know, wherever I need to go and not worry about my hair reverting. So that is my main reason for those are some of my main reasons for loving synthetic hair. I also love that you can very much manipulate texture and like make the texture yield to you in ways that you can't without using chemicals on human hair. Those are just my reasons. The second thing that I had started to talk about was just these textural blends. So I prefer hair that has a bit of a blend of texture. And the reason why I like that is, like, for myself, maybe not everybody has this going on. My opinion is, I'm not a baby. I don't want baby hair. Especially at this age, for me, when I have like straight, laid down, you know, melted, whatever baby hair, the juxtaposition between that and my face, I'm just not a fan of that. I find it so out of order for myself and uncomplimentary. But I love just my natural edges. And so when I have these blends of hair, I can, you know, have the type of edge situation that I want. Like even this is the crochet hair. This is not my hair. So when I tell you that this hair is no leave out, I mean it's no leave out. I make wigs by day. I'm a creative director at Finger Comber. And so often when I post pictures wearing the wigs, people ask me, you know, you have leave out, don't you? I'm like, no, I don't have leave out, because I like to design the wigs so that the texture around the edges does not require you to leave out your hair, that it will literally look like, you know, your natural edges would look without having the hassle of trying to hide a lace. So at any rate, those are two things. The first thing that I mentioned was start around the part and around the edges. The second was to use textures that are well blended. And I guess part of the first one also was that make sure you're not going to put in too much hair to make the hair look overly dense. Now, the third and the last thing that I'm going to recommend for a more natural, flawless looking install with your crochet, especially when you are a woman in your 50s like myself, I would suggest using colors that are complementary. And again, getting blends or creating blends of hair where the colors just look seamless and they have some depth to them. I am an ombre kind of person, like every day, all day. I love my ombre. So I like to use blends that have, you know, nice depth, not just like a flat kind of one color looking thing. And even when I'm using like highlights, I love highlights. I like to go as high as a color can go, like where it can almost look white, like somewhere above 613, like an ashy version of a 613 blended with something as deep as like a traditional kind of 1B. So I suggest using colors that are complementary. And I, you know, as a brown woman, I like blonde hair, but I don't like it when it looks like blonde hair. I feel like when you get the right blend, it looks almost like blonde hair, but it still looks somehow like your hair is black, like your hair is dark, but it's light. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just like something that I like to create. And I think that it makes the hair look so much more natural than when it's just like one flat color. Yeah, so this is the protective style for today for the style challenge. And I've said in my other videos that you are never too young, you're never too old, it's never too late to start a protective styling journey. It's something that, you know, you could say you owe yourself to take care of your hair while still having your hair look beautiful ways. I like to encourage women in our age group to challenge your thoughts about limitations when it comes to hairstyling. Like, you might think that if you're in your 50s or your 60s, you're not going to be out here, you know, wearing, you know, like brow length blonde hair. But if you tried it and you adapted it and maybe customized it, you could probably come up with something that would work and would be beautiful and complimentary. And not only is it beautiful and complimentary, but it's something that you could enjoy for yourself. I so much prefer the idea of having styles that you can enjoy, styles that make you feel like you're celebrating, styles that make you just feel like you're showing up in a way that you want to show up, not, you know, limited or boxed in somehow. I hope that this channel will challenge women in our age group to consider, you know, other options that you might have just pushed aside and thought, oh no, I can't do that anymore. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe so you don't miss upcoming styles. And please, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. I'll be so happy to try and answer as many as I can. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.